we're about to talk to the real estate guru, Tom Panos, about the Australian dream, owning your own home. And there are a lot of people just giving up on it because they just know that it's out of reach. The average home costs 13 times the average income. These days, it's expected to take young people more than 20 years to save up for a deposit on a unit. For a house, well, it probably doubles to about 40 years. In 2009, the average age of people taking out a home loan was 23. Now it's 32. So it means more young people are renting, and there's a whole other challenge there to find a rental at the moment. Tom Panos, the leading real estate guru, live in the studio with us. Tom Panos, good morning to you.
Good morning, Ben. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for having us along for the ride as well. You've been really brutally honest about the fact that it's just out of reach, right? And people are going to be waiting and waiting and waiting and dreaming and dreaming and dreaming and just not getting in there.
So, Ben, if I'm doing an auction, which is a small part of what I do, it's a Saturday job, and I go to an auction and I see a person that's under 30, unless I see a mum and dad near them, I'm thinking to myself, they have no chance, right? And it's very difficult. It's very sad to see that some of the people that are buying real estate now under 30s are people that are on OnlyFans, because it's got to the stage where, well, you said it, it's going to buy a unit, 20 years. If you're an 18-year-old, it'll take you 20 years to get a deposit. To buy a unit for a house, it's 40 years. Now, Ben, back in my era, I remember the dream was you'd get to 60, 65 and you'd have your house paid off. That was the dream for the average Australian. I'm totally debt-free. These days, the dream is I'll have to get to that age to actually put a deposit down. So you can see why people are so disheartened and giving up.
When you look around those people turning up at auctions and people coming into inspections and open homes, how often do they have mum and dad with them?
Okay, so I'm not there at the open for inspections. I only show up there for the auctions. But I can tell you it would be roughly 50%. If they're bidding, if they're registered to bid, and that's what you've got to do in Sydney, I would say around 50% of the times I'll either have mum and dad, it's hard to work out, say mum or dad,
sure.
But it's obviously...
But that also, I mean, it's great for the kids who've got access to that. That places pressure on mum and dad too. Because once upon a time, mum and dad weren't thinking about a big cost like that at this stage in their lives.
And Ben, at some point, people are living longer. At some point, a parent has to stop being a parent. So I'm looking at these people that are, say, 60, 65. If they're going to live to 80, 90, handing out lump sum deposits of $100,000, $200,000, that changes the trajectory of your retirement for most people.
And there are a lot of people now saying that they feel uncomfortable about the fact that it's only the inheritance that's going to turn them into a homeowner.
Yeah, because there's this moral obligation that, I haven't earned it, it's not mine, it was a free kick, but it's got to the situation, Ben, we're moving in a society. Imagine, I know teachers and nurses who cannot rent or buy a home. So you could just picture, there's no turning back. When a society says that we can't help a teacher or a nurse, there is no turning back for society. It's against the fabric of Australian society.
I've got a mate who's a real estate agent, Matt Hayson from Cobden and
Top
Hayson
agent
in Balmain. And Matt said before, he goes, okay, if we want to find rentals for the nurses and the police officers and the ambos and everything, why not offer some incentives to the landlords to say, look, if you've got one of these frontline workers in these areas of Sydney, and then you get some kind of break on something else, whether it be, stamp duty or land tax or something else. Offer some incentive to those who rent out their places at a lower price to some of these frontline workers. We've got to be thinking differently, don't we?
100%, because if nothing changes, nothing changes. That's what we're seeing at the moment.
And for those people who are thinking about the inheritance, I mean, I just think about that as well. That's uncomfortable when you're thinking, all right, well, I'll only be allowed to buy something when mum dies or when dad dies. Should we be exploring the option of allowing people to get into their super to buy a home? I know this has been one of these debates that's gone on forever. Where do you stand on that, early access to super?
So I think 99.99%, maybe 100% of people would say, give me access to money in my 20s, 30s, and 40s, not when I'm 60 and 70 in ill health and I've already actually slammed my body because of the financial stresses I've had throughout my life. I would say nearly everyone would think that that's a very good option.
Because it changes everything. When you become a property owner, I think your confidence levels rise because you think, all right, well, I've got that security. I've got that place. I've got a roof over my head. I know where I'm sleeping at night, and it changes your life. What about the makeup of those who are coming along to auctions at the moment? We always hear about overseas buyers and the competition that comes from China. You would have seen that firsthand, but what's it like at the moment? How big is the interest from there?
Look, so we're all clear. Unless it's an investment property, unless it's a brand new property or a block of land, a foreign investor cannot invest in Australia, right? So they are driving those property prices up because we know that, Ben, over the last few years, we've shifted from wanting the fixer-uppers. We want the totally renovated ones. We want the brand new ones. So all of a sudden, the overseas buyers are competing against local buyers on that. And I don't know if we're going to touch on immigration, but I can tell you, Ben, and I'm of Greek origin.
I can see.
I'm of Greek origin.
I can hear it.
And
Panos,
right? Big day for the Greeks. They've just won the Olympiacos won the Euro, first time that a team's ever won it, right? But I've got to say to you, and I shouldn't be saying this, but we're at the stage, a good metaphor is, at the moment, it's like having a hotel, 1,000 rooms in the hotel, and the hotel owner says, don't worry, just let them come in. Let them come in. We'll find a space. So you get 1,500 people in a hotel with 1,000 rooms. Oh, where are you going to put them? You're going to put them in the reception lounge.
Some of them end up sleeping in the car park.
They sleep in the car park.
That's what's happening right now. And the other way of looking at the whole migration argument, it's the quality of life you're offering to the people who come here as well. What's the point in inviting people to Australia if they turn up here and there's nowhere for them to live? But you would see this as well, the pressure that immigration is putting on a whole range of things, including the housing market. And I know that Peter Dutton's been criticised when he's made that point, but he's right, isn't he?
He is right. And it's a difficult thing to say because the minute you start sort of saying, hey, immigration is not good. Now, immigration is very good. Immigration helps a country progress. It's good for security. However, I think pressing the pause button and saying, hey, if we've only got 1,000 houses, why are we letting 1,500 people in, right? You just got to have, demand and supply. So I think the simple solution is a pause or a reduction till we sort out the housing issue or we make progress towards it. And it also hasn't helped, Ben, this COVID Zoom phenomenon where we end up having people working from home a lot more. Yeah. We've moved from we have less people living in a household now, and that's put pressure as well because people got sick and tired of sharing the kitchen table, two people doing their Zoom meetings. Yep. So that hasn't helped real estate as well.
So they want to be on their own. They want their own space. Okay, Tom Panos, before you go, you're going to give us all advice on what we do when we go to an auction. Because I see the videos, and you've got a real following online where everyone watches your auction videos and everything else. As a buyer, as a wannabe buyer, what do we do when we go to an auction? What's your tips?
I think,
apart from bid regularly and bid high.
Well, the obvious have the most money, but let's assume that you haven't, and you've got a trick to try and compete against someone that's got more money. I think, Ben, you've got to create the impression, I'm not stopping today. I think your first bid's got to be really, really strong and scare everyone away, and I think you've got to bid loud and fast because they'll just think to themselves, this guy's not going to stop.
Yeah. I saw a guy at an auction once, every time someone else bid, he just yelled out, plus 1,000.
Yes.
Plus 1,000.
Yes.
Plus 1,000. Plus 1,000. Plus 1,000. And eventually the other people thought exactly what you just said. This guy's not going to stop. And he ended up with the property. It's fascinating to talk to you. And you can follow Tom online. Look out for his social media stuff because he puts up not only his auction videos, but also some motivational videos as well. It's great to catch up, mate, and let's do it again soon.
Ben, thank you so much for having me on. The real estate and the mortgage industry adore and love your voice. So thank you for everything.
Thank you very much. Tom Panos.